Hello, everybody. For those who don't know me, my name is Aviva. I am an autistic advocate. I have been an activist for a very long time, and the center of my advocacy is through chlorine dioxide. For those who don't know, chlorine dioxide is an industrial strength bleach that is being touted as a cure for just about anything. Just to be perfectly clear, it is very dangerous. People have died, and it should not be done to anybody. But the main thing I'm going to be talking about is that it's being promoted as a cure for autism. It does not cure anything. It's based off of a thought that autism is caused by a parasite, and then when they're given the chlorine dioxide enema or any type of oral solution, um, they they lose linings of their esophagus, their bowels, and they say, "Look, I caught the autism today. It's leaving my child." And they think that's the parasite when it's in fact the mucous membrane lining coming out, and your child is getting very sick. So, um, MMS was quote unquote discovered by the Genesis 2 Church. They are the people mainly responsible for promoting it all over the world, making it such a problem like it is today. It is FDA approved for very, very few applications. This is for purifying water in very tiny concentrations. When I took my scouts camping, we used it to purify the water because the water wasn't safe, but the water, even dropping the chlorine tablets in there, it still tasted like bleach, and we opted to bring our own water, and it made everybody sick. So we just toughed it up and brought gallons of water with us, and that was just the way to make everybody happy. Um, the concentration that MMS is used is much higher than recommended that anybody is meant to have in their body. They use it, they say it's a miracle because they say it cures everything. They use it as a miracle cure for autism. It is applied in much higher concentrations into enemas, oral solutions, topical solutions, humidifiers, any route into the body. They don't care how it gets in as long as it gets in. The side effects include sores, rashes, liver failure, jaundice, vomiting, diarrhea, shedding of the intestinal lining, even altering the red blood cells. So, the person who came up with this, his name is Jim Humble. He is an ex Scientologist who started the Genesis 2 Church of Health and Healing. They started this because they knew they could hide behind the First Amendment saying that MMS is a sacrament and they wouldn't get in trouble, and they got away with this for years. He says it cures autism, diabetes, cancer, Ebola, malaria, etc. Jim Humble, he fled to Mexico. The archbishop of this church now, well, I use the word church lightly, is Mark Grennan. Mark Grennan's son, Jonathan Grennan, was distributing it in Florida. So, how did he get it marketed to autistic families? There's a real estate agent by the name of Carrie Rivera. Some of you might have heard of her. So, uh, Carrie Rivera went to go meet Jim Humble, and they came up with. She brought her protocol on how to quote unquote cure autistic kids, right? And she wrote a book which is how to bleach your child, but she calls it Healing the Symptoms Known as Autism, and it was taken off the market. Thank goodness. She introduced this at a conference that Jenny McCarthy made famous. It's called Autism One. So Autism One is a conference that happens every year. It used to happen in Chicago. Um, the autistic community does nickname it the Quack Fest because that's basically what it is. You get all these anti-vaxxers, people pushing all these fake cures. There's a whole panel of chiropractors who think that vaccines cause autism, and they don't. It's been disproven multiple times, and even when they say it did, the paper got retracted because the person in charge of the study lied. And the Lancet retracted from, we all know, Dr. Andrew, well, he's not a doctor anymore, Andrew Wakefield, and the person who gave him this idea, her name was Rosemary. Rosemary, what was her name? What was her name? Well, she thought that autism was caused by an allergic reaction, which is absolutely ridiculous. So I got involved with this fight when my son was diagnosed when he was 3. After seeing the neurologist, there was not a lot of information, so I went online. Just like any good parent would do, you want to find out what's going to help your child. Because of this, I started researching the internet. My own mother told me to listen to Jenny McCarthy. We don't speak anymore. I have spoken on my mother before. Not a nice person. So, I was, at the time, I was in college to be a veterinary technologist, so everything was very research, science based, biology. They used chlorine dioxide to kill parvo on the surfaces because it lives on the surfaces for a year and dogs die from it. So, when I saw that chlorine dioxide was being used to cure autism, I thought it was a joke. And when I saw it was real, I knew that these people had to be stopped. So I got together with now one of my best friends. Her name is Emma Delmain. She quote unquote rescued me out of a martyr parent Facebook group, and over the past 10 years, we have gotten very close. So she was reporting on these parents to Children's Services and asked for help for people in the U.S. because she lives in the U.K. So all she had to do was ask. I always want to help. In 2019, a reporter by the name of Brandy Zendronsky, I'm probably butchering her name, but she's probably used to it by now. She interviewed me, Emma, and another friend of ours who's been working with us, Melissa Eaton, in this really huge story in NBC. It came out in May of 2019, actually the same day that the Autism One conference started. I'm not even sure if that was done on purpose, but it was probably a good thing. So since that came out, it was picked up by the Young Turks, by HLN, which we did a live interview. I mean, even Dr. Oz called us, and I know he's a quack, but we needed to reach his audience. We did, and it was a very interesting experience. It was good to see that so many people caught wind of this and were now aware that this was such a huge problem, right? So, I mean, it caught a lot of it it caught a lot of publicity, um, but it FDA didn't move on it, even though they know it's such a big problem. The only thing they did was put out a warning, didn't arrest anybody. So we more on the people who started. That was just a background of how it caught international attention. So history on it. In 1996, Jim Humble, like we said earlier, was a Scientologist. He claimed to discover MMS when mining for gold in the jungles of South America. He claimed that it cured malaria. It doesn't cure anything. You will just make yourself sick. You wouldn't go drink Clorox under your sink. Only chlorine dioxide is a lot more potent. Don't do it. After some time, he invited a missionary group to Africa where he experimented with MMS on the locals there. He poisoned over 5,000 people there because he got them to believe that it was going to cure the malaria and they were going to save their children. He also claims that he is a god from the Andromeda galaxy, and then he 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 asked to be put in the part of the space navy that watched over Earth. Humble said. He was out there. In 2010, Jim Humble and Mark Rennan founded the Genesis 2 Church of Health and Healing. Both of them are self-styled archbishops. That's just what they call themselves. They don't have any credentials. They have nothing. and they made up the church. They did so they could distribute MMS more easily because it would be like doing a bar mitzvah or having manischewitz at a bar mitzvah on Shabbat. They were trying to make it to be the same, and it's not. One's not hurting anybody, and the other one is killing people. They did need to find a church because the mainstream medical community relies on fact and not anecdotal evidence. Anecdotal evidence is when you say you have experience with something and it is not valid in a scientific study. He lists MMS as a religious sacrament, so it is harder to prosecute. It took years. He even said that it has nothing to do with religion. He said this on his own podcast. He co founded the Genesis 2 Church to legalize the use of MMS, those are his words, and avoid getting caught. Their main idea is that chlorine dioxide can kill pathogens in the body and that cause illnesses. They say it should be ingested every day to maintain health. So they take the idea that if you spray bleach on the counter and it kills germs like Lysol does, because Lysol's not a bleach, it's a disinfectant, that if you do that on the counter, the same should be true in the body. Yeah, I know. Um, they set up shop in Bradenton, Florida, out of their home. It is not an actual church, it's in a residential area. They say that Genesis 2 is a non religious church. Okay, it was founded to create a legal structure to protect Jim Humble's teachings. They do not claim to serve God, but that's all Mark Grennan talks about from prison. They say they serve humankind. They reference Bible quotes throughout their website. And the website was taken down, thankfully. They chose the name Genesis 2 to reference a new beginning. This is related to their goal of restoring health and removing humans from the current world of death to the world of the living. So they say ingesting poison will make everyone be part of the world of the living, and people are dying from treating their illnesses, diseases, and conditions. That's interesting. Their members and websites suggest to help people they must spread the knowledge of MMS. They maintain the belief that Big Pharma has a cover up happening related to MMS. They claim that MMS is safe for everybody. And they have also accused Emma, Melissa, and myself of being Big Pharma shills. You know what? We're still waiting for our check. We wouldn't have to move if Big Pharma was actually paying us for what we were doing. Imagine that. That would be really nice. The members of this group carry around a card that says, this card signifies that this member of the Genesis 2 Church of Health and Healing has given the God-given, unalienable right to control and maintain their personal health. All members are exempt from any means not chosen, including but not limited to vaccines, medication, x-rays, scans, implants, mandatory voting, and health insurance mandated by a human government or authority. Several times a year, Genesis 2 held seminars on how to use MMS, and a group of people would be certified in bleaching in just one short weekend. They also had 1 hour podcast complaining about how everyone is out to get them. Mark Grennan claims to have been a Boy Scout. Scouts don't teach this. I have been a scout, a Girl Scout, when I was a little kid for 10 years. I had my Gold Award, which is almost like the equivalent of the Eagle, right? And then I was a Cub Scout leader for a very long time and a Scoutmaster for a girls' BSA troop. Nowhere in the law, the motto, the slogan, or the oath does it say that we are going to poison people with bleach. So now you have the history of Genesis 2. Then you have Kerry Rivera. Kerry Rivera is responsible for spreading it to throughout the autism community, because the autistic community is made of autistic adults, and we do not want to be poisoned. We just want to be accepted for who we are. What's the harm? But Kerry Rivera, who we call her the Bleach Queen, is a real estate agent that is originally from Chicago, Illinois. She has two sons, Alex and Patrick. After her son Patrick was diagnosed with autism in 2004, she followed Dr. Rimlin with the Defeat Autism Now protocol. So, Bernie Rimlin started this whole quackery nonsense. We have him to thank. I'm not sad that he's dead, but his organization is still alive and well. It's called the Autism Research Institute now. So, this protocol includes biomedical interventions that are considered to be quackery, such as IV chelation, bariatric oxygen therapy, and neurofeedback. She said that her son was a non responder and she was very disappointed. In 2006, Carrie met with Bernie Rimland, the founder of Defeat Autism Now and Autism Research Institute in San Diego. Rimland gave Rivera permission to translate his protocol from English to Spanish. So, again, she is responsible for spreading this throughout the Hispanic community and preying on BIPOC people. That's great. She said she was inspired by Bernie Rimland. She became a rescue angel for Jenny McCarthy's organization called Generation Rescue, which Generation Rescue, thank goodness, was dormant for a very long time because she received bad press, as she should have. She was also a mentor for TACA, which TACA doesn't denounce MMS. They threw a baby fit when they stopped chelation trial when it was shown to be dangerous to the lab rats, and she was throwing a fit and throwing out anecdotal evidence. So soon after she met up with Jim Humble. She tried MMS or chlorine dioxide on herself and her son. Jim Humble, the co-founder of the Genesis 2 Church of Health and Healing, claims to have discovered it. Well, the background that you've already heard. He said it cured. Carrie Rivera claims that the veil of autism was lifted and he began speaking in ways he hadn't for years. He probably was in speech therapy. She probably put him through the torture that is ABA, which I covered in my last podcast, and didn't really see what was going on in front of her, that her son was being poisoned. And I'm sure he still is. There is no scientific evidence to back up any claims that MMS works at all. There has never been any clinical trials when I wrote this, but there has been one that closed down because it was dangerous. And people still don't want to believe it. So after this, she went to Los Angeles. She attended the Los Angeles School of Homeopathy from 2010 to 2013. She earned her certificate in D-Hom, and she took it as me being an MD, which is not the same thing. You do not earn your medical license in a couple years. People go to school for 11 years for that. And thank goodness she's not a doctor. So in 2013, Carrie Rivera wrote the book Healing the Symptoms Known as Autism. This is a how-to guide on how to poison an autistic child with bleach. The introductory chapter is written by Jim Humble, the founder of Genesis 2. Her sister, Kimberly McDaniel, who was a journalist in Mexico, helped her write the book as well. Healing the Symptoms Known as Autism was banned on Amazon in 2019 due to our article coming out, and I did make a few calls to Amazon to let them know that they were promoting this quackery and they could be liable for kids dying and getting hurt. Soon after the ban, Carrie Rivera had a troll watch page. It lists very effective autistic advocates and allies fighting for autistic rights. Myself, Emma, and Melissa are on it. It was taken down, but you can find it on my website. I did copy it just so there's some accountability. So after her book gained popularity on social media, Rivera started a Facebook support group. It was called CD Autism. These groups were in several different languages. English, there were 7,000 members. Spanish, Arabic, 10,000 members each. Turkish, 12,000 members. And in Portuguese. These groups were banned shortly after the MMS was in the media and Facebook felt the pressure of letting this go on. So they only remove anything when they are approached by reporters. And it's very sad. They just don't care. After being kicked off of Facebook, she went to Mayway. From that didn't last very long, and from there she went to Telegram. She has a paid and a free Telegram MMS group. She has a group in Spanish as well. The Spanish group has been taken down several times but always reopens. Telegram is an encrypted app where the company does not like to take down any content and has been favored by terrorists and criminals because they claim free speech. But this free speech comes at a cost. Recently, Rivera has written a book called The Alternative First Aid Reference Guide. It can only be found on her website as she's being banned from major book retailers everywhere. Thank goodness. Carrie Rivera has been a repeat speaker at Autism One. This is where she made her MMS protocol widespread. She does not like calling it MMS, she calls it chlorine dioxide. I don't know why. The first time she spoke was in 2015. Since the injunction, she had an injunction against her where she wasn't allowed to talk about it, sell it, etc. Through the state of Illinois. The first time, okay, she appeared virtually to get around this. Uh, there was an autistic protest in front of the conference each year. Rivera tries to intimidate protesters. Two parents were outside the conference, and four security guards were watching for them. The mother said, "We know, keep moving, stay off Lowe's property." That was the name of the hotel that it was at. The police were informed. The security couldn't believe when they told them they were there protesting bleaching autistic children. One mother states, "Carrie came out with a security guard and it looked like some manager lady. They were watching us. I recognized her and let the others know. We started chanting, looking directly at Carrie Rivera. 'Go away. We don't need your bleach today.' She went inside. Carrie came out later with security again. I pointed out to her that the film crew and they approached her, but security hustled her inside." In the county of Cook, Illinois, they issued an assurance of voluntary compliance to Carrie Rivera, where she signed as well. This is due to her many appearances to Autism One promoting MMS. This order states she will not sell MMS. All her accessors of hers are bound by this agreement. So if anybody takes over for it, they're responsible. She will not be present at any seminar or conference to sell MMS. If this is violated, it will be brought to the Attorney General of the state of Illinois. After this, she fled the United States and moved to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, and she started an autism clinic there. 2 weeks after this was 2 weeks after Bernie Rimlin had died. He died on November 1st, 2006. Her clinic was called Autism O2. It was the only clinic in Mexico that offered biomedical and behavioral treatment. A nurse by the name of Byron worked for her. Brian stated that they met via eBay. On eBay, her husband, Mimo, was looking to buy a vintage DeSoto car, and I was selling one. Mimo wanted it to use for parts for a 1951 DeSoto limo that they own. 2 years after they were in contact, Brian was working for Rivera at her clinic. She started a nonprofit in Mexico called Beboppingo AC to fund her clinic. Nothing we do on a daily basis here at the clinic to help families is impacted by autism would ever happen without Bernie Rimlin, she said. She credits Bernie Rimlin for all her work, and that's extremely scary. If it wasn't for him, a lot of these kids would not be hurt and die. She claimed to treat MS, multiple sclerosis, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, autism, arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, diabetes, and many more. They offer ozone saunas, hyperbaric oxygen chambers, ABA, nutritional and protocol counseling, information about the DAN, Defeat Autism Now, biomedical protocol, and IV chelation. She met her husband, Alfred Billick. He's German. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his name right. When her when her when he brought his wife and child, whom he was still married for bleach enemas. He traveled from Germany to Mexico for this. It should tell you Mexico, I mean, Germany even has it illegal. He left his wife and married Rivera on June 30th, 2017. They moved to Bremerhaven, Germany, where she currently operates her quackery groups from there. On December 18th, 2017, Douglas Hara registered Keto Carry as a business in Chandler, Arizona. Their file number is L224-33996. The agents listed for Keto Carry are Michael Hara, Douglas Hara, and Carrie Rivera. According to the website, the Keto Carry brand was created by Carrie Rivera, the internationally recognized author, to make premium products available for fair prices for many people seeking health worldwide. Carrie advocates the keto diet, so the name Keto Carry was born. Keto Carry is revolutionizing the supplement industry one product at a time. It is not every day a warrior mom, we hate those, comes along and starts her own premium brand to get much needed products into the hands of other people seeking a healthy lifestyle. Carrie has a heart of gold because she experienced all the difficulties herself firsthand in recovering her own son. Keto Carrie exists to put the best tools available into the hands of every person on the planet seeking a healthier future. As Hippocrates believed, the body can heal itself. He said, "The food shall be thy medicine shall be thy food." Keto Carry was designed to support this. Our vision is worldwide. We want to help everybody. So that's a lot to unpack there. Hippocrates was around before the rise of modern medicine. And she is the keto diet was originally put out to help epileptics who had a hard time with seizures. It can be dangerous if not supervised by a doctor. I was on it by the supervision of an endocrinologist because I have polycystic ovaries. There's also a Keto Carry Telegram group. So they are pairing the her modified keto diet with MMS. So they're limiting these children's foods while while poisoning them with bleach. So the products they offer a whole lot of supplements. These She also offers Skype consultations. So she charges $175 for 1 hour. Follow ups are $85, and she has a disclaimer on her website. A consult with Carrie does not constitute medical advice, nor is it a substitute for a consult with your doctor or healthcare provider. As always, you are responsible for your health and for the health of your children. She claims she can cure Lyme disease, prostate cancer, chronic fatigue syndrome, hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's disease, multiple sclerosis, the flu, viruses, candida, mold toxicity, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, pandas, bipolar disorder, and more. What she says about MMS. She says that it's controversial because it works. I started researching and found out that it destroyed viruses, bacteria, candida, parasites, reduces all over body inflammation, and neutralizes heavy metals, so I am all in because that's what autism is. Rivera claims that MMS can cure autism by killing the parasite with a protocol that's timed with the lunar calendar. This is pseudoscience at its worst. I believe the missing piece of the puzzle to autism recovery is chlorine dioxide. So she has a protocol just for full moons because apparently autistic people act quote unquote worse under a full moon. In December of 2020, Emma Dalmain came to me because she was messaged on Twitter about a clinic in the UK that recommends MMS to parents of autistic children. It was called the Health Clare Clinic, but it was disguised as a podiatrist's office. She had a hard time finding the clinic, but I was able to use it using my Google Foo. That's because I have really good search skills. Okay. With that information, Emma was able to bring this to the media. Julia Chaplin was the name of the person running it, and she was exposed for promoting MMS. She even admits to not knowing the pharmacology of MMS, but recommending it when she doesn't even understand it herself. That happens so often, and it's quite scary. She was in direct contact with Clive DeCarl and Kerry Rivera. Clive DeCarl is another MMS quack that is out of Ireland. So, when 2020, when the pandemic hit, these people could not help themselves, right? They could not help themselves. They marketed it to cure and prevent COVID, right? So, as COVID-19 pandemic spread, of course, Kerry Rivera and the rest of the, we call them the bleach cult, couldn't help themselves. They came up with a protocol to prevent and cure COVID 19. In the Telegram group, a pregnant woman was advised to dilute drops of MMS and consume it throughout the day. This is while she was pregnant. So not only was she doing this to herself, she was doing this to her unborn child. There were numerous FDA warning letters her, between the Genesis 2 for doing this. Um, Kerry Rivera was okay. So next came from the FDA, the Grennans of the Genesis 2 Church. He sent a letter to Trump. Mark Grennan sent a letter to Trump while he was in office. The letter reads, it was on May 19th, 2020. Dear President Trump and Attorney General Barr, I am writing you to ask for the immediate arrest of the U.S. attorneys Matthew J. Feely, Ross S. Goldstein, David A. Frank, and U.S. Judge Kathleen M. Williams for violating the gross negligence and contempt of our First Amendment rights as a church to practice our beliefs. Remember, he said that he wasn't running a religious church. The above mentioned individuals have been complicit in case 1 20 CV 21601 by allowing the FDA and FTC to categorize our church sacraments as a drug and therefore having power to regulate and or approve. Not only is this offense to us and all religions, but a church sacrament does not need to be approved by the FDA or FTC to be practiced. According to the First Amendment, there can be no law that prohibits us, never mind a code. Here is a code which the FDA is using as a basis for the case against us, the Genesis 2 Church and 4 of its members. So that's Grennan and his 3 sons. The FDA is using the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act 21 USC 332, alleging that the defendants directly or indirectly violate statute USC 331D by introducing or delivering for the introduction into interstate commerce new drugs as defined that are neither approved, pursuant, or exempt from approval. The FDA goes on to build a case against us by adding 1 MMS, a drug defined by the statute. The defendants have posted content on their websites claiming that MMS is intended for curing, mitigating, treating, or preventing COVID 19, Alzheimer's, autism, brain cancers, HIV/AIDS, and multiple sclerosis. We as a church are having our rights violated and need a relief immediately from this unlawful attack against our church and the First Amendment. So, what this is a direct reaction to the Judge Williams, who issued a protection order where they can't manufacture or distribute it, and they have said many times on their podcast that they weren't going to do it. They just weren't going to do it, and they were so arrogant that they thought they would never get caught. Yeah, they. So after the restraining order, so this restraining order, Genesis Two Church had court, and a federal courthouse in Miami. I live about 50 miles away, and I took the drive down to, but unfortunately, they wouldn't let me in, which is fine. On May 1st, 2020, it was released that there was a primary preliminary injunction placed on the Genesis 2 Church. The Genesis 2 Church now has been banned from selling and promoting, signposting, distributing MMS chlorine dioxide bleach. They cannot label, hold, and or distribute any drug, including and not limited to MMS, that does not have an approved new drug application pursuant 21.1. The United States motion for preliminary injunction is granted. Upon entry of this order, defendants and each and all of its directors, officers, agents, representative employees, successors, assigns, attorneys, and any and all persons in active concert or participation with any of them, hereinafter associated persons who received actual notice of this order, shall not, during the pendency of this action, directly or indirectly, label, hold, and or distribute any drug, including but not limited to MMS, that does not have an approved new drug application. So it goes on to say that in so many different ways, so they can't say, well, we're doing it this way and trying to find a loophole. After they ignored the injunctions and they did what they want, they even said it on their podcast. No, we're going to do what we want, and this is why everyone's out to get us. So the FDA did a raid on their house. So there were federal charges filed against Mark Brennan and his three adult sons. After the search warrant was executed, they recovered 50 gallons of muriatic acid, 22 gallons of miracle mineral solution, and 8,300 pounds of sodium chloride. Sodium chloride and the muriatic acid, if they mix together, they form MMS. Two of the Grennan sons were arrested because they were in Florida in the house, and the other two were, and one son and Mark Grennan were hiding in El Rodero, Magdalena, Colombia. So, Mark Grennan, after the raid, they raided our church yesterday, took everything and even all my books. So now you can't even write about chlorine dioxide and its benefits. They even took all my books, so now you can't even write about cures. He wasn't making a very good case for himself. He posted again, the battle has begun for health freedom for the Genesis 2 Church. Not long after this, Grennan and his other son were arrested in Colombia. They were placed in Colombian jail until they were able to be extradited. The judge who had the extradition application on his desk had retired, so they had to reassign it. So they were all waiting for all the Grennans to be on martial hold in federal prison. So what that means is martial hold means that they are not eligible for bail, that they are just remanded, and there's no chance to even ask for bail because they were hiding in Colombia. They obviously are a flight risk. So on April 23rd, 2021, Mark, Jonathan, Jordan, and Joseph Grennan were indicted in the South District of Florida Federal Court. It was for the marketing and selling of fake cure for COVID 19. They did not act on it when autistic kids were being poisoned, but hey, it's something. So, the many years that we have been reporting to the DOJ, FDA, and all that, but it was just disabled kids. They didn't care. But the minute everyone else was affected, that's when they acted, and we called them out on it. They claim that's not it, but we don't believe them. According to the indictment, the Grennans, all of Brendan in Florida, manufacturers promoted and sold a product they named Miracle Mineral Solution. MMS is a chemical solution containing sodium chloride and water, which, when ingested orally, became chlorine dioxide, a powerful bleach typically used for industrial water treatment or bleaching textiles, pulp, and paper. The Grennans claimed that ingesting MMS could prevent and cure COVID 19 according to the charges. The FDA, however, has not approved MMS for treatment of COVID 19 and for any other use. Rather, in prior official warning statements, the FDA had strongly urged consumers not to purchase or use MMS for any reason, explaining that drinking MMS was the same as drinking bleach and could cause dangerous side effects, including severe vomiting, diarrhea, life threatening low blood pressure, and others. In fact, the FDA received reports of people requiring hospitalizations, life threatening conditions, and even dying after drinking MMS. The indictment further alleges that before marketing MMS as a cure for COVID 19, the Grennans marketed MMS as a miracle cure all for dozens of other serious diseases and disorders, even though the FDA has not approved for any use. The Grennans sold tens of thousands of bottles of MMS worldwide, including to consumers throughout South Florida, according to the allegations. They sold this dangerous product under the guise of the Genesis 2 Church of Health and Healing, called Genesis in the order, an entity that they are accused of creating to avoid government regulation of MMS and shield themselves from prosecution, which they plainly said during many podcasts. According to the charging documents, Genesis' own website described Genesis as a non-religious church, and the defendant Mark Grennan, co-founder of Genesis, has repeatedly acknowledged that Genesis has nothing to do with religion, and that he found Genesis to legalize the use of MMS and avoid going to jail. The Genesis website further stated that MMS could be acquired only through a donation to Genesis, but the donation amounts for MMS were orders set to a specific dollar amount and were mandatory, such as the donation amounts were effectively just sales prices. The indictment alleges that the Grennans received more than $1 million from selling MMS. So yes, they made about 33,000 a month, is what it boils down to. They are also being charged with criminal contempt. Not only were they being brought up on civil charges, they are being brought up on criminal charges. Monday, April 26, 2021, was their arraignment. Of course, they didn't show up. Well, no, the ones that were in the United States showed up. So there was a calendar call for September 21st, 2021. According to these court documents from federal court system calendar, a calendar call is set for September 1st, 2021. All motions are due by July 15th, 2021. The trial is set for September 27th, 2021. We are all looking forward to it, but it didn't happen. They kept on throwing motion after motion after motion after motion. So by now, they finally approved the extradition from Colombia so they could be charged in the U.S. Colombia didn't want them. The Supreme Court of Colombia approved the extradition of Joseph Timothy Grennan. He is the founder's son. When the Supreme Court of Justice studied this case, they found no barriers to approving extradition. The president of Colombia, Ivan Duque, will need to sign the extradition order for the Grennans in Colombia to be deported to the United States, specifically to Miami, to join their family of accomplices in jail. The documents presented in support of the request for extradition of the requested is formally valid and required under analysis is satisfied. So that's what it translated from the Spanish. Joseph Grennan had a hearing in Miami on 12/29/21. Joseph Grennan was in federal court in Miami after being extradited from Colombia. He did arrive in the United States after hiding in Colombia and being in a Colombian prison when arrested. According to his indictment, which has been filed in April of 2021, MMS was being manufactured and marketed and sold by the Grenans as the Genesis 2 Church as a cure by the Genesis 2 Church of Health and Healing. This indictment says that the Grennan family was creating a non-religious church in an attempt to evade government regulation of MMS and shield themselves from prosecution, which they have admitted on the internet numerous times. This hearing was an arraignment as he was arraigned before without him present. Bail for Joseph Grennan was decided. It was denied due being a flight risk. He is on martial hold. Let's be honest. He is the definition of a flight risk right now. His charges were conspiracy to defraud the U.S. government, delivering and misbranding a drug, and contempt. He waived his right to counsel, and the rest of his family has done the same. The hearing was an hour and 19 minutes. So, after all of this, there has been numerous court documents filed by Mark Grennan. On March 14th, 2022, Mark Grennan filed a 13-page court document demanding full immunity without recourse, and for his full cooperation. Interesting how his sons are not on this document. He is suing the people of the United States. He cites a court case in 1838 between two states over a border dispute. He alleges that the federal government has no jurisdiction over him. He is an American that fled the country to Colombia, and Colombia was more than willing to send him back here. He cites a court case between Rhode Island and Massachusetts. This suit dates back to the year 1830 over a dispute over a shared border. This caused them to resolve where the border is. What does this have to do with federal government charging him with fraud? Absolutely nothing. He also made an argument about jurisdiction that screams the sovereign citizens movement. My husband is an ex-cop, and these sovereign citizens only want the U.S. laws when it is convenient for them. So it was basically a word salad saying that the court has no jurisdiction, so any judgment the judge made is void. That's not how it works. You don't get to determine what the federal judge has the jurisdiction over. It is written into law. You were in Bradenton, Florida, manufacturing chlorine dioxide. This is a South Florida district of the U.S. Supreme Court. He said, "We accept your offer to contract under the following terms and conditions, and this shall be construed as a counteroffer done with full immunity and without recourse with respect to the undersigned and his avatar. I shall be deemed to have obtained age of majority retroactively and to have disaffirmed in all contracts made in infancy. I shall be deemed and shall be held and adjudicated that I am a competent natural man, opposed to an unnatural man? A natural person, that by my word are never to be construed literally but contextually. That the only law shall apply to my person is the golden rule, otherwise known as common law. Acceptance of your offer is contingent on the aforementioned and are rebutting each and every one of the proof of claim herein, point by point, with facts and conclusions of the law and the land, originally jurisdiction, common law, that I and my property and my interests are to be considered and held fully indemnified against any and all consequences as this agreement entered into without recourse on my behalf and interest." Grennan is saying that he's not held by the law of the United States when he makes this little makeshift bleach factory in Florida. He expects not to have face the consequences of what he has done to thousands of people by claiming to be a sovereign citizen. He does not say that explicitly, but that's the language that they use. What is a sovereign citizen? A sovereign citizen is someone part of an extremist movement that is considered domestic terrorists. They are anti-government extremists who believe even though they reside in the United States, they are separate from the United States. They believe they don't have to answer to any government authority, including courts, tax entities, law enforcement, motor vehicle departments, etc. There are a lot of dangerous and illegal activities done in the name of sovereign citizens. They commit murder and physical assault, threaten threaten judge, law enforcement professional, and government personnel, impersonate police officers and diplomats, use fake currency, passports, license plates, and driver's licenses, and engineer white collar scams which include mortgage fraud and redemption schemes. Does this sound familiar? It should. The golden rule he is referring to is from the New Testament: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. This is an appeal that is asking the jury to put themselves in the defendant's position based on facts and evidence. This is recognized as universally improper because it encourages the jury to be non-impartial and decide the case on personal interest, which is against the oath the jurors take before serving. He also claims to be indigenous, which I thought that was really odd. He said that for the record shall reflect that the attaining the age of majority adulthood, binding upon all jurisdictions, I am a Native American born in North America on a date indicated on the certificate of birth, of live birth. And this is my will. I place this information as a memorial of my will and do so attesting under the organic Constitution of the United States of America that the aforementioned information is accurate. I do hereby attest and declare, as well as affirm, I have notice of estoppel and stipulation of constitutional challenge. This white man is claiming to be Native American. If they want to take it this far, all they have to do is a DNA test. They can test for what your race is and if you have any native blood in you. This is a racist as hell to claim that a race that you are not. But with the current technology, all you need is a DNA test to prove it. Also, in this passage, he states he has a birth certificate, which is a document used as proof of being a citizen of the United States. With this document, he sends in his birth certificate and returns it and thinks that will cause him not to get in trouble. That's not how this works. And he acts on this document as his own notary. Again, that's not how this works. At the bottom of the document it says, this affidavit is completed with my hand sign, which shall serve as a self-authenticating notary, i.e. evidence. And he signs and dates it and writes without prejudice. That's not how this works. So we have been waiting for court. It's supposedly going to happen on January 3rd. After I move, I am flying down for this. So after Mark Grennan got into the United States, he has a very interesting defense. He made his first court appearance on July 28th in Miami. He and his three sons were charged of fraudulently marketing and selling MMS. According to his indictment, all the Grennans manufacturers promoted and sold it. It was being used in a way that was not approved by the FDA. So the trial was set for September 12th, but it got pushed back. The Grennans are claiming to be sovereign citizens, as explained before. He went one step further. He wrote the court, and he sent back his birth certificate. In his mind, if he sends it back, he would not be charged. As he says in his Telegram group, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge because thou hast rejected knowledge. I will reject thee, that thou be no priest to me, seeing thou had forgotten the law of thy God. I will also forget thy children. Everyone, please pray today as the document was filed in court will accomplish our release. Ask the Lord to speak to the heart of the judge and discharge our case and make us free. And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Okay. Again, that didn't work. There was a lot of that nonsense in that document that we just read. So it was, so right now the court date is set for January 3rd. But he is not the only one who is in legal trouble. Kerry Rivera got raided by German police in July of 2021. It was found out because it was posted to a Telegram group, which, I do monitor from time to time, but I do have a life. I try to keep up as much as I can. Um, all of her devices were taken. Um, Another bleacher who lives in the UK by the name of Leon Edwards, that Emma had exposed, she says that I am not allowed freedom of speech. She also said, I created a 3-minute video in January 2020 sharing hope and healing with anyone who would be interested, and that led to a $150,000 case. Obviously, they want to shut me up. After receiving a letter from the government that the case is over 5 weeks ago. On July 13th, 2021, at 6 a.m., a team of 11 to 14 police invaded our home and ransacked it as if I were a drug dealer. They took supplements and all of the electronics from computers to cell phones. Once gone, we were left with a search warrant and confusion. You know exactly what you did. And soon after that, she was interviewed by the SGT report, which is another quackery far right online show. She calls it a TV show, but it's not. And in this, they call us whore cockroaches because we want to protect children. We have not heard anything else on Carrie Rivera's case, and we are waiting anxiously. So, I guess the moral of this is to just accept your children for who they are, and instead of trying to change them or poison them or do anything like this to them, just accept them and figure out, or even ask autistic adults for help. You will notice the difference between children who are raised by autistic parents and non-autistic parents. You would see how well supported they are. Don't forget to subscribe or follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. Keep on speaking your truth and never let your flame burn out.